James, a self-made entrepreneur, thought his life was perfect until he caught his wife Olivia whispering with a stranger at their country club. A chilling exchange of a hidden note sparked his instincts. Was this a betrayal, or was something far worse? As clues piled up, James uncovered a calculated plot threatening everything he'd built. Buckle up for a story of deception, revenge, and a mastermind staying 3 steps ahead. James Parker, 35, stood at the edge of the Redwood Country Club's 9th hole, his golf club resting lightly in his hands. His tech startup, a mobile app that streamlined small business logistics, had just crossed $50 million in revenue. Years of grinding, coding late nights, pitching to skeptical investors had paid off. He glanced at his phone. A notification from a local community center thanked him for mentoring young coders. Their eager faces, piecing together their first apps under his guidance, always grounded him. Today, though, his focus was on the game. The club's annual tournament buzzed around him, Silicon Valley's elite mingling over cocktails and putts. His wife, Olivia, 32, moved through the crowd, her laughter carrying over the chatter. She organized the club's charity gala, her charm pulling in donors effortlessly. James admired her knack for it, the way she made everyone feel seen. Their marriage, built on mutual ambition, felt like a well-oiled machine. A prenup, signed before their wedding, kept his assets locked tight, his choice born from a cautious streak that had served him well in business. Olivia had agreed without hesitation, her signature sealing their trust. As James lined up his shot, a woman approached the green. Chloe Evans, 28, a new club member, walked with a golfer's confidence, her swing sharp in earlier rounds. She'd joined the tournament late, her name added to the roster only last week. James noticed her watching him, her gaze lingering a beat too long. He shook it off, sinking his putt with precision. The crowd clapped, and Chloe flashed a smile, calling out, "Nice one, James." Her tone was friendly, but something in her ease unsettled him. At the post-tournament mixer, James grabbed a water, scanning the room for Olivia. She stood by the bar, deep in conversation with Chloe. Their heads tilted close, voices low. Olivia's hand brushed Chloe's arm as she slipped something small, a card, maybe a note, into her purse. Chloe glanced around, then tucked it away, her expression neutral. James's stomach tightened. Olivia rarely came to the club unannounced, and he'd never seen her with Chloe before. He started toward them, but Olivia spotted him, waved, and broke off, heading to another group. Chloe vanished into the crowd. Back home, James kept his routine steady, cooking dinner with Olivia as they discussed her gala plans. Her smile was warm, her stories animated, but his mind replayed that moment at the club. Why the secrecy? He pushed the thought aside, blaming his overactive instincts. Business had taught him to spot patterns, shady deals, hidden agendas, but this was his wife, his partner. Still, the image of that exchanged item gnawed at him. The next morning, James drove to the community center, guiding teens through debugging their code. Their excitement pulled him in, but his focus drifted. Chloe had called his office yesterday, asking about golf training schedules. She'd suggested a private session, her tone casual but insistent. James had declined, citing a packed week. Her persistence fell off, like a chess move he couldn't read yet. At the club that afternoon, his longtime doubles partner, Ryan, 40, pulled him aside. "I'm out, James," he said, eyes avoiding contact. "Personal stuff. Can't play anymore." James frowned. Ryan's steady presence had anchored their games, their wins opening doors to new investors. "You sure?" James asked. Ryan nodded, then added, "Chloe's good. She'd be a solid replacement." The suggestion landed like a brick. Ryan, who'd always vetted partners carefully, pushing Chloe so quickly, it didn't add up. James hired Alex Torres, a private investigator he'd used to sniff out a competitor's leak years ago. Discreet, James instructed. Follow Olivia and Chloe. Document everything. Meetings, exchanges, anything odd. Alex, sharp and no-nonsense, agreed to start immediately. That evening, James played a solo round, his swings mechanical. Chloe appeared on the fairway, offering tips on his stance. "You're tense," she said, stepping closer. He stepped back, keeping his tone light. "Just focused." Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes searched his. Alex's first report came 2 days later. Photos showed Olivia meeting Daniel Pierce, a golf instructor, at a dim cafe in Palo Alto. They sat close, her hand on his wrist, his voice low. Another image caught them entering a boutique hotel, their steps synchronized. James's pulse quickened. Daniel was a club regular, polished and charismatic, but this wasn't casual. Alex's notes detailed a pattern. 3 meetings in a week, always in low-traffic spots. A recorded call fragment had Chloe telling Olivia, "He's cautious, but I'll get him to slip." James's grip tightened on the report. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a plan. He kept his routine airtight, joking with Olivia over breakfast, discussing her gala. She mentioned Daniel in passing, praising his coaching. James nodded, his face neutral, but his mind raced. Chloe's pushiness, Ryan's exit, Olivia's secrecy. They were pieces of a puzzle, snapping together. He called Alex, doubling the surveillance. "Dig deeper," he said. "I need to know how far this goes." As he hung up, James felt the familiar clarity that had built his empire. Trust your gut, and act before they do. James Parker sat in his office. The hum of Silicon Valley outside his window, drowned out by the weight of Alex Torres's latest report. The private investigator had escalated his efforts, tailing Olivia and Chloe with precision. New evidence landed on James's desk. A series of encrypted texts between Olivia and Daniel Pierce, the golf instructor, discussing the plan. One message from Olivia read, "Chloe's close. Push harder." Another, from Daniel, confirmed a meeting to finalize details. James's jaw clenched. His wife wasn't just cheating, she was orchestrating something bigger. Alex's surveillance also caught Chloe at a tech cafe near James's startup, meeting Mark, his IT manager. They spoke in hushed tones, Mark passing her a USB drive. Alex's audio snippet captured Chloe, saying, "This gets us into the financials." James's company, built on secure logistics algorithms, held sensitive client data. If Mark was leaking access, the stakes weren't just personal, they were corporate sabotage. James instructed Alex to shadow Mark, suspecting he was the weak link. The next day, Chloe texted James, proposing a weekend golf retreat in Monterey. "Great for strategy," she wrote, her tone overly enthusiastic. He declined, citing a client pitch, but her persistence sharpened his suspicions. At the Redwood Country Club, she lingered after his practice, suggesting a drink to talk doubles. James deflected, noticing her quick glance at his phone as it buzzed with a work email. He excused himself, his mind racing. She wasn't just after him. She was probing for leverage. Alex's next update hit harder. Photos showed Olivia and Daniel at a secluded park, exchanging a folder. A lip-reading expert hired by Alex decoded their conversation. Olivia mentioned prenup clauses and evidence for court. Daniel nodded, promising to keep Chloe on track. James realized the end game. Stage a scandal to paint him as unfaithful, nullifying the prenup and securing Olivia a chunk of his $50 million fortune. But the USB drive suggested a second motive, draining his company's accounts. James met Alex at a quiet diner off Highway 101. "Mark's compromised," Alex confirmed, sliding over a transcript. Mark had confessed to a colleague about helping someone access server logs, pressured by personal dirt. James's instincts screamed blackmail. He tasked Alex with intercepting Mark's communications, focusing on his link to Chloe. Meanwhile, James kept his routine flawless: breakfast with Olivia, mentoring coders at the community center, and casual golf rounds. Olivia noticed nothing, her smiles as polished as ever. At the club, Ryan, James's former doubles partner, avoided eye contact during a chance encounter. James pressed him, asking why he quit so suddenly. Ryan mumbled about family issues, but seemed nervous, glancing toward the clubhouse where Chloe was chatting with Daniel. James didn't push. Ryan's unease was a clue itself. That night, Alex sent a bombshell, a recorded call between Chloe and Mark. Chloe threatened to expose Mark's gambling debts unless he delivered the full API key by Friday. James's blood ran cold. His company's core system relied on those keys. He acted fast, hiring a cybersecurity consultant to audit his servers. The consultant found unauthorized access attempts, traced to an IP linked to a co-working space Chloe frequented. James tightened security, locking Mark out of sensitive systems without tipping him off. He also fed Mark a decoy file, a fake financial report, to see if it surfaced in Olivia's hands. The trap was set. Chloe upped her game, showing up at James's office unannounced with a gift, a custom golf ball set. She lingered, asking about his upcoming pitch too. James Parker drove the golf cart along the secluded fairway, the Redwood Country Club's private course stretching quiet and empty around him. Chloe Evans sat beside him, her chatter about swing techniques masking a calculated edge. James's recorder, hidden in his bag, hummed silently, capturing every word. He'd chosen this course for its isolation, owned by a friend who'd lent him access to a private lounge for what he planned next. His lawyer, Sarah Klein, had emphasized the need for a confession to seal the case. Today, he'd get it. As they reached the fifth hole, James steered the cart toward the lounge, a small cabin tucked behind a grove of oaks. "Need to grab something," he said, keeping his tone casual. Chloe nodded, unsuspecting, and followed him inside. The door clicked shut behind them, the lock snapping with a deliberate thud. James set his bag down and pulled out a folder, spreading its contents across a table. Photos of Chloe with Olivia at the sushi bar, screenshots of her text with Mark, and a transcript of her call, demanding API keys. Chloe's eyes flicked over the evidence, her posture stiffening. "Explain this," James said, his voice low but firm, sliding a recorder into view. Chloe's lips twitched, attempting a dismissive laugh. "This is nothing, James. Just club gossip." He tapped a photo of her passing the folded paper to Olivia. "Then why's my wife hiding this from me?" Chloe shifted, her confidence cracking. James pressed harder, playing a clip of her threatening Mark. Her face paled. "You got 10 seconds to tell me what Olivia paid you for," he said, starting the recorder. Chloe's defiance crumbled. She admitted Olivia hired her to stage compromising moments, photos, texts, anything to suggest James was unfaithful. The goal was to void the prenup, securing half his $50 million empire. She confessed to pressuring Mark with his gambling debts to access company systems, feeding Olivia data to siphon funds. Every word, recorded, was a nail in their plan. James kept his expression neutral, but his pulse raced. This was the leverage he needed. He dismissed Chloe with a warning. "Any retaliation, and this goes straight to the police." She left, her steps hurried, phone already buzzing with a call she didn't answer. James sent the recording to Sarah, who confirmed it was enough to trigger criminal charges. But he needed Mark's confession to lock in the financial fraud. James arranged a meeting at a remote diner, far from Silicon Valley's prying eyes. Mark arrived, jittery, his hands fidgeting with a coffee cup. James laid out the evidence: the USB exchange, the intercepted email, the fake financial report Mark had passed to Chloe. "I didn't want this," Mark stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. James slid a notepad across the table. "Write it all down. Every step, every order from Olivia and Chloe. Do it, and I'll keep you out of jail." Mark hesitated, then scribbled a detailed account. Olivia's instructions to funnel money through shell accounts, Chloe's blackmail, and his own reluctant role. He signed it, his hand shaking. James pocketed the confession, promising to honor the deal if Mark stayed clean. Sarah moved fast, compiling the recordings, Mark's statement, and Alex's surveillance into a legal brief. She filed for an emergency court order to freeze Olivia's accounts and protect James's assets. The judge, reviewing the evidence, approved it within hours, scheduling a hearing for the next morning. James kept his routine airtight, joining Olivia at her charity gala that evening. He smiled, clapped for her speech, and toasted donors, all while knowing a U.S. Marshal would serve her summons at dawn. At home, Olivia chatted about the gala's success, oblivious to the storm coming. James mentioned a client trip to San Francisco, leaving early. She nodded, unsuspecting, as he kissed her goodbye. He drove to Sarah's office, handing over the final pieces: Chloe's recorded confession and Mark's written statement. Sarah coordinated with a county prosecutor who added conspiracy and attempted fraud to the charges. The marshal knocked on their door at 6 a.m., delivering the court order. Olivia's confusion was palpable as she read the summons, her hands trembling. The hearing unfolded in a sterile courtroom. Olivia sat, pale, as the prosecutor presented James's evidence: Chloe's audio, Mark's confession, and photos of Olivia with Daniel at the hotel. Each piece tightened the noose. Olivia tried to deflect, claiming the meetings were professional, but the texts about prenup clauses and evidence shredded her story. The judge ordered her to surrender her passport and banned any financial transactions, pending a full investigation. Olivia's lawyer whispered urgently, but her composure cracked, her eyes darting to the exit. James watched from the back, silent, his focus unbroken. Daniel, summoned next, faced questions about his role. He admitted to meeting Olivia, but denied financial motives, claiming he just helped with logistics. The prosecutor wasn't buying it, and the club's internal review loomed over him. James left the courthouse, his empire secure for now, but the final move was coming. Olivia's world was unraveling, and he'd make sure every conspirator faced the consequences of their choices. James Parker sat in his lawyer's office, the Silicon Valley skyline visible through the window, as Sarah Klein reviewed the court's latest ruling. The judge's order had frozen Olivia's access to their joint accounts and barred her from contacting Daniel Pierce or Chloe Evans. The evidence, Chloe's recorded confession, Mark's written statement, and surveillance photos, had turned the tide. James's tech empire, worth $50 million, was safe for now, but the fallout was just beginning. Sarah handed him a new report from Alex Torres, the private investigator. Olivia had tried contacting Daniel hours after the hearing, a direct violation of the court's terms. James instructed Alex to monitor Olivia's digital footprint. Within a day, Alex intercepted an email she sent from a burner account to Daniel, urging him to clear the trail. The message mentioned a cloud drive with backup files. James's cybersecurity consultant traced it, uncovering a folder with staged photos of James and Chloe at the club, carefully framed to suggest intimacy. Olivia had planned to leak these to a divorce attorney, claiming infidelity to void the prenup. The consultant also found transaction logs linking Olivia to an offshore account, siphoning small sums from James's company. James acted swiftly, directing Sarah to amend the court petition with this new evidence. The prosecutor added obstruction of justice to Olivia's charges, escalating the case. Meanwhile, the Redwood Country Club launched an internal probe into Daniel's conduct. Alex's photos of him with Olivia at discreet locations triggered a swift response. The club suspended him, citing ethical violations. Daniel tried to salvage his reputation, offering private lessons off-site, but clients canceled, and his federation credentials were frozen pending review. Chloe, shaken by her courtroom summons, met with her lawyer in a cramped Palo Alto office. The prosecutor had her confession on tape, detailing her role in Olivia's scheme. Facing potential jail time, Chloe agreed to cooperate fully. She handed over bank records showing Olivia's payments, $10,000 wired in small installments, and a text thread where Olivia instructed her to make James look guilty. Chloe's lawyer negotiated a deal: probation, restitution, and 200 hours of community service in exchange for her testimony. She left the meeting, her charm replaced by resignation, knowing her golfing days were over. Mark, James's IT manager, faced his own reckoning. His confession had spared him prison, but James's company terminated him for breaching security protocols. The deal with the prosecutor required Mark to repay $15,000 in illicit gains and teach cybersecurity workshops for at-risk youth. At his first session, he stood before a group of teens, explaining how a single weak password could unravel a career. His voice wavered, but he pressed on, determined to rebuild some shred of purpose. Olivia's world shrank rapidly. The court ordered her to turn over her phone and laptop for forensic analysis. Investigators arrived at her lawyer's office, copying data while she watched, her hands clenched. They found the burner email and cloud drive, confirming her attempt to cover her tracks. A court notice followed, demanding she vacate their Palo Alto home, registered in James's name, within 48 hours. Olivia packed a single suitcase, her charity gala invitations now distant memories, and moved to a budget motel nearby. James maintained his routine, mentoring coders at the community center and securing a new client contract worth $2 million. His focus was ironclad, but the sting of betrayal lingered. He met Alex at a quiet park to review the final surveillance. Olivia had visited a storage unit, retrieving a locked box. Alex's team, with a court warrant, seized it, finding printed emails between Olivia and Daniel planning to sell the narrative to a local news outlet for sympathy. The judge, informed of this, tightened her restrictions, banning media contact. Daniel's career collapsed further. The club's board, after reviewing Alex's evidence, terminated his contract. He tried texting Olivia, begging for a plan, but her lawyer intercepted, warning him to stop. With no income, Daniel took a job driving for a delivery app, his golf clubs gathering people in a rented apartment. His final attempt to teach privately ended when a client recognized him from a club newsletter exposing unprofessional conduct. Chloe began her community service, sorting donations at a local shelter. A single mother, struggling to pay rent, shared her story, and Chloe listened, her own choices echoing in the woman's desperation. She logged her hours quietly, her confidence gone, replaced by a resolve to start over. Mark, meanwhile, found his workshops gaining traction. A teen's question about hacking ethics prompted him to share his mistake, not for pity, but as a warning. He left each session lighter, as if teaching was chipping away at his guilt. Olivia faced a second hearing. The prosecutor presented the cloud drive evidence, showing her intent to manipulate the narrative. Her lawyer pushed for a plea, but Olivia resisted, still believing she could spin the story. The judge, unmoved, extended the asset freeze and scheduled a trial date. As she left the courthouse, Olivia called her parents, asking to stay with them. The call was brief, her voice hollow, as she realized the life she'd orchestrated was now a series of closed doors. James prepared for the trial, his evidence airtight. Sarah warned that Olivia might try a last-ditch counterclaim, but the intercepted emails and confessions left little room for doubt. He walked into the community center that evening, guiding a teen through a coding error. The kid grinned as the app worked, and James felt a spark of clarity. This fight wasn't just about protecting his empire. It was about proving no one could outmaneuver his resolve. James Parker stood outside the Santa Clara County Courthouse, the morning sun glinting off the glass facade as he reviewed his final strategy with Sarah Klein. The trial date had arrived, and the evidence against Olivia. Chloe's recorded confession, Mark's written statement, intercepted emails, and surveillance photos, was ironclad. The prosecutor had built a case for conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction, each charge backed by a paper trail that left no escape. James's tech empire, now valued at $52 million after a new contract, was secure, but today was about closing the chapter for good. Inside the courtroom, Olivia sat beside her lawyer, her posture rigid as the prosecutor laid out the case. A screen displayed text planning to frame James for infidelity, bank records of payments to Chloe, and logs of unauthorized company access. The cloud drive, with its staged photos and media strategy, drew a sharp rebuke from the judge. Olivia's lawyer argued she acted out of emotional distress, but the prosecutor countered with her deliberate attempt to leak the story. The judge silenced the room, ordering a recess to review the plea offer, a fine, probation, and no contest to the prenup's terms. James watched Olivia's reaction from the gallery. Her hands twisted in her lap, her earlier defiance gone. She accepted the deal, signing away any claim to James's assets. The judge imposed a $50,000 fine, 3 years of probation, and a no-contact order with James, Chloe, or Daniel. Olivia left the courtroom, her steps heavy, avoiding the eyes of the few spectators. She drove to her parents' home in San Jose, where a guest room awaited. Over dinner, her father asked why she'd risked everything. "I thought I could control it," she said, her voice barely audible, the words carrying the weight of her unraveling ambition. Daniel Pierce faced his own reckoning. The Redwood Country Club's board, after a final review, banned him permanently. His attempt to pivot to online coaching fizzled when a local sports blog posted about his role in the scandal. With no clients, he packed his belongings into a storage unit and took a second job stocking shelves at a warehouse. Late at night, he scrolled through job boards, his phone's glow illuminating a life stripped of its former prestige. A text to a former colleague went unanswered, a silent confirmation of his isolation. Chloe Evans settled into her new routine, clocking hours at a San Francisco nonprofit. Her community service involved teaching job skills to displaced workers, each session a reminder of her own missteps. One evening, a client thanked her for a resume tip that landed a job. Chloe nodded, her usual charm absent, replaced by quiet accountability. She rented a studio apartment, her golf clubs sold to cover legal fees. Her lawyer confirmed the restitution was complete, but the probation terms kept her tethered to a low profile, far from the country club spotlight. Mark, the former IT manager, found a fragile rhythm. His cybersecurity workshops gained a small following, with teens asking sharp questions about data ethics. At one session, he shared how a single compromised email had cost him his career, urging them to think twice before crossing lines. He took a part-time tech support job, enough to cover rent at a shared house. His sister, hosting him during the fallout, noticed his late-night coding sessions, rebuilding apps for local charities. It wasn't redemption, but it was a start. James returned to his routine, mentoring coders at the community center with renewed focus. A teens app, a budget tracker for low-income families, won a local competition, and James beamed as the kid credited his guidance. At the office, he implemented new encryption protocols, ensuring no future breaches. The Redwood Country Club invited him to lead a youth golf clinic, a nod to his integrity. He accepted, but his swings were sharper now, each one a release of the betrayal he'd outmaneuvered. Olivia's final court appearance confirmed the plea's terms. She handed over a second passport, found in her motel room, complying with the judge's demand. Her lawyer passed her a folder of case documents, each page a record of her choices, texts, emails, and plans laid bare. She moved to a small apartment, taking a remote admin job. Social invitations stopped, her charity gala days a memory. At night, she read the court's summary, the word conspiracy staring back, a marker of a life she'd gambled and lost. Daniel applied for a delivery gig in a neighboring city, hoping for a fresh start. His application was rejected after a background check flagged his club suspension. He sat in his car, staring at a faded golf tournament badge, then tossed it into the glove box. Chloe, finishing her service hours, volunteered extra time at the nonprofit, her name off the club's roster for good. Mark coded a free app for his workshop kids, a tool to detect phishing scams, and saw downloads climb. Each found a new path, but none could erase the cost of their roles in Olivia's scheme. James closed his laptop after a late-night mentoring session, the community center quiet. He'd protected his empire, outplayed a calculated betrayal, and emerged stronger. The victory wasn't in revenge. It was in rebuilding trust in himself. As he locked the center's door, a teen waved, shouting, "See you next week." James nodded, his focus clear: build, protect, move forward. The conspirators faced their consequences, their lives reshaped by choices that proved one truth. Deception may start the game, but accountability writes the ending.